Paul George last year was the subject of a lot of conversation in NBA circles for his poor play in the bubble. But now in 2021, after a year of ridicule and criticism, PG-13 found a way to bounce back by just carrying over what he did in the regular season, which was a really good season that went under the radar, into the postseason, which has been a struggle for PG-13 ever since he burst on the scene in Indiana. But before I go any further about how great Paul George has been this postseason, I would like to give a shout out to my second channel called If I Must. On that channel, I talk about things every single day, so you get daily NBA content, and throughout this postseason, you're not going to want to miss my reactions to games, recaps, and just my overall thoughts on current NBA events. I recently hit 1,000 subscribers and I would like to grow that channel out. So if you're interested in that kind of content and you like me as a creator, make sure you go and check out If I Must. The link is down below in the description box. But before we also continue with this video, let me give a shout out to the sponsors, StarStock. StarStock is a new and improved marketplace for sports card hobbyists to buy, sell, and invest in their favorite athletes. Their goal is to enable sports fans to instantly trade cards like never before. Sign up today with my promo code YoungMustard and receive $10 free whenever you make a deposit of $10 or more. But without further ado, enough of all the plugs. Let's get back to the topic of this video, and that's PG-13, Paul George himself. Now, before the season started, if you asked anybody to name a player that they hated, more than likely the response you were going to get would be Paul George. And coming off of last year's performance in the bubble, in which he shot below 40% throughout the entire playoff run, I would say that hate and criticism was very much deserved, especially when you're sitting in a post conference and you say that this year was not a make it or break it year, it wasn't a championship or bust year, but yet in the offseason you're with Dennis Schroeder on Instagram Live saying that you're stacked and you can't wait for the season to come back. Because it's one thing if you play bad. We understand you had a bad series, bad playoff run, move on. But then it's another thing to play bad, make excuses, and downplay the expectations that not only people in the NBA community gave you and the Clippers, but expectations that you gave yourself. And throughout the entire offseason, Paul George heard all the noise, he heard all the criticisms, the way off P, PG-13%, pandemic P, playoff P, whatever P you want to throw out there. Paul George heard it all, and he used it to fuel himself for this season, in particular these playoffs. Because PG, in his own words, said it was time for revenge season, and a revenge season is surely what he had. Because averaging 23 points, 5 assists, and 7 rebounds on 47% shooting from the field and 41% from 3 was not only enough for him to be an all-star, but was also enough for him to make one of the All-NBA teams. And considering how well he played in the regular season, it was no surprise that he was going to make one of those teams, because offensively, he had one of his best years to date. As though his points per game may not have been at career highs, his efficiency surely was, as he had a career high in true shooting percentage at nearly 60%. And it wasn't just his scoring that he made sure to put on point, it was his playmaking as well. As in a lot of other years, Paul George wasn't always utilized as a ball handler and playmaker. He usually had other guys to do that for him. Players such as Russell Westbrook, George Hill, Lance Stevenson, and just a multitude of guys that were primary distributors alongside Paul George. But this year, Ty Lue has utilized Paul George in the offense better than any other coach PG has had throughout his entire career. Because this year, with a career high in assists per game, Paul George has evolved into being a great playmaker and passer of the basketball. Because as his defensive ability wanes a little bit more, and his scoring ability not always required as a #1 option, as they do have Kawhi Leonard, Paul George has to find other ways to be effective, and as a playmaker, he has definitely found his role. But then that brings us to where we are in these playoffs, and I gotta say, PG has taken us on a roller coaster ride, because after all the years of failing and coming up short, by the Clippers and by Paul George, they couldn't have asked for a worse way to start off the postseason other than going down 2-0 to the Dallas Mavericks, which is what happened. And when that transpired, I, like many others, thought the Clippers were done for. But in a game where their team needed his contributions more than ever, on the road in Dallas down 2-0, Paul George drops 29 points, 7 rebounds along with 4 assists, shooting 61% from the field and converted 5 out of his 5 free throw attempts. That was a very key game for the Clippers and Paul George's legacy as a whole, because if they lose that game, there's no way they're coming back from that 3-0 deficit, which would have inevitably had ended up with the Clippers losing in the first round and Kawhi Leonard more than likely leaving in the offseason. But in that moment when they needed Paul George to step up and avoid all of that, he did so. And I know a lot of people are going to say he had some rough shooting performances against Dallas, but he still pitched in a lot of areas that you may not realize, such as game 6 where they needed to win on the road in Dallas. And sure, he shot inefficiently in certain areas, 40% from the field, 28% from 3, but he also recorded 13 rebounds and 6 assists, shot 75% in the fourth quarter, and recorded 8 points in that time period also. Or you could look at game 7 where he shot inefficiently, but he also recorded 10 assists, 6 rebounds, and 3 steals. These are moments where the Clippers need Paul George to be the star that we all know he's capable of being, and consistently in that first round, he did that. And that's all you can ask for. And in the second round, he even superseded people's expectations, as against the number 1 seeded Utah Jazz team, they went down 2-0 yet again. And just like in the first round, this was recipe for another Paul George disaster. It was all about if he was going to step up to the plate and respond like the superstar we all know he can be. And in game 3, just like he did against the Dallas Mavericks, also being down 0-2 in that series, he responded, as he recorded 31 points, 5 assists and 3 rebounds, and shot 50% from the field and 6 of 10 from behind the arc. Paul George was sensational in game 3, easily one of the best playoff games I've ever seen him have. And what's so crazy about it is that wasn't even his best game throughout that entire series, because with news breaking that Kawhi Leonard is going to be out with an indefinite knee injury, most if not all people ruled the Clippers out of even winning the rest of the series, because the Jazz were no joke. They're one of the best 3-point shooting teams in the NBA. They have a star that rises to a superstar level in Donovan Mitchell, and a DPOY winner of multiple times over, including this season in Rudy Gobert. But Paul George walks into Utah, a place that he has struggled in the postseason numerous times in his past, and he got the job done. He delivered, dropping 37 points, 16 rebounds, 5 assists, a steal and 2 blocks, shooting 55% from the field and 91% at the free throw line. This is the playoff P that we have all wanted to see for years, because we've always known Paul George has had the ability. We've always known Paul George has the skill. The only issue is the mental strength to push through. And this year, it's very obvious Paul George used all the hate, all the criticism, all the shit he went through throughout the entire offseason and even in the regular season, because people were on his ass for bad games in the regular season. But it's clear that he used all of it to fuel him for this moment. And for that alone, Paul George deserves all of our respect. But that concludes this video. Let me know your opinions down below in the comment section. If you're not subscribed to the channel, what are you doing? Press that subscribe button and push the bell for post notifications. Check out the Nothing But Action podcast. We just dropped an episode today. You don't want to miss it. We roasted the Jazz, and a lot of people wanted me to do so I lived up to their wishes. So make sure you check it out. The link is down below in the description box for our YouTube channel and our audio platforms. Make sure you subscribe to the second channel also. The link is down below in the description box as well as the pinned comment. This is your boy Young Mustard signing out. Have a blessed day. Peace.